Hey there, everyone. Since this is our first episode, let me start by asking, have you ever felt like there's a missing piece in the conversations around personal growth, leadership, or just making sense of life? That's exactly what we're here to explore together. Let me give you a quick introduction to what you can expect from this podcast. Caffeinated Musings is your weekly dose of thoughtful reflections on navigating life and career in a world that often feels like it's perpetually in beta form. Every Tuesday, we'll dive into a new topic, whether it's about mindfulness, leadership, personal growth, or even the challenges that come with balancing ambition and tranquility. I created this podcast because I felt there was a gap in the podcast sphere. There just aren't enough conversations that tackle these issues with the transparency and honesty they deserve. And honestly, I wanted to create a podcast I'd want to listen to myself. Because after searching for a while, I could not quite find what I was looking for. So, grab your cup of coffee, I have mine in hand, and join me every Tuesday as we explore the things I'm most passionate about and hope you are too. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like and comment and share your thoughts. I would love to hear from you. So, now that the podcast synopsis is out of the way, welcome once again to Caffeinated Musings. Today we're diving into something close to my heart, solitude. Not the kind of loneliness you might be imagining, but the power, the strength, the genuine comfort that comes with being alone, truly alone, and discovering who you really are. Now, before you start picturing me as some kind of lone monk on a mountain, which honestly isn't too far off some days, I want to make it clear that solitude isn't about running away from people or isolating yourself. It's about choosing to spend time with yourself. It's about connecting inward rather than outward. And it's one of the most empowering things you can do for your growth, creativity, and sanity. So let's dive in. I understand that for many of you, the thought of solitude can feel intimidating. You might be thinking, but I'm too busy, I don't have time to be alone, or whenever I try to spend time alone, I just end up feeling lonely. These are real valid concerns. And I get it. We live in a world that values constant connection, and solitude can feel almost countercultural. But here's the thing. Solitude doesn't have to be a grand, time-consuming commitment. It can start with just a few minutes a day. If you're busy, try incorporating solitude into small moments. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk after lunch, without your phone, or sipping your coffee in silence before you dive into your work. These little pockets of time add up, and before you know it, you start to crave these moments because of how refreshing they feel. And we will dive more deeply into some examples later on. If you're worried about feeling lonely, know that solitude is about building a relationship with yourself. When you first start, it might feel awkward, just like meeting someone new. But over time, you get more comfortable, and eventually you might find that being alone becomes something you cherish. You know, we live in a world that often makes us think that being alone means something is wrong. It's as if you always need to be surrounded by people, networking, sharing your every move, answering DMs and messages and emails. But honestly, it's like we've all bought into this collective fear that if we aren't constantly connected, we're missing out. FOMO, right? But let me tell you this. There's real magic in being alone, in solitude. I want to take a moment to draw a line between solitude and loneliness. Loneliness is when you crave connection and it's missing. Solitude, on the other hand, is a choice, a very powerful one. Think of it like sharpening an axe before chopping wood. Taking time alone gives you the clarity, focus, and strength to face the world more effectively, just as sharpening an axe makes every swing more impactful. Think of solitude as the difference between being alone on a Friday night and absolutely loving it, versus being in a crowded party and feeling more alone than ever. One is an empty void, the other is an enriching experience. Solitude is what lets you catch your breath, hear your own thoughts, and become your own best company. And believe me, I've been there, working long hours, constantly juggling people, projects, deadline, barely taking a moment to breathe. A while back, I decided to step back. I left my job after 18 years of non-stop working. 18, that's enough to make anyone question if they're living or just existing. And if I'm being honest, there were a few personal issues I had to deal with as well. I knew that something had to change. So while I continued with my private consulting work, I carved out some time for myself, true quality time alone. And in these moments of solitude, I started something I'm really proud of. I started my blog, caffeinatedmusings.com, which has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. Ever since I remember, I've been writing, but to put it all in a blog and to have it out there for the world to read in my name was a great accomplishment for myself. And now here we are with this podcast, born out of that same time of deep introspection. I also found myself getting deeply into spirituality, prayer, and meditation. Ways of being that really rooted me, gave me a higher level of awareness, and frankly, a sense of peace and contentment I hadn't experienced ever before. And here's the kicker. None of that would have been possible if I hadn't made the decision to be alone, to really be alone, to be comfortable in my own company without distractions. And for me, being an early riser, typically up and working by 5:30 a.m., helped immensely. It's in those quiet morning hours where the world hasn't woken up yet that I found clarity. There's something powerful about those moments when it's just you and your thoughts. But don't just take my word for it. Warren Buffett, for example, spends hours alone thinking and reading. He calls it his time for just sitting and thinking. Can you imagine a world where Warren Buffett made every investment decision in a loud, crowded room? I can't. Solitude allows for clarity, and clarity drives insight. And take Steve Jobs, one of my favorites, who often spoke about being alone, allowed him to explore the depth of creativity and focus. He famously took walks by himself whenever he needed to think deeply or make big decisions. These were moments of uninterrupted solitude, where he could sift through thoughts and come to his own conclusions. Even in the arts, solitude is key. The poet Rainer Rilke wrote, "I hold this to be the highest task for a bond between two people, that each protects the solitude of the other." It might sound a little intense, I know. It took me 3 times to read it properly, but it gets to the core of it. Solitude is vital to being you, without the noise and without the pressures. And one final example is Albert Einstein. So he said, "The monotony of solitude of a quiet life stimulates the creative mind." He knew that his best work came not from constantly being around others, but from having the freedom to let his thoughts take root, uninterrupted. Solitude isn't just about taking time away from others, it's about giving time to yourself, nurturing those seeds of creativity that often get buried under the noise of everyday life. So now you might be wondering, so what does science have to say about solitude? Well, the science is pretty fascinating actually. I'm going to explore with you some of the key findings that show how solitude can benefit your overall well-being. Starting with emotional regulation. So spending time alone helps with emotional regulation immensely. When we're constantly in the presence of others, we tend to react more quickly, sometimes impulsively, to external stimuli of, people shouting, people talking, people wanting our attention. Solitude allows us the opportunity to process our thoughts and emotions without interference, which in turn helps us become more composed and thoughtful in our responses. Many studies have shown that people who take time alone have a greater ability to regulate their emotions, which ultimately leads to better decision making. Solitude also provides an environment where creativity can thrive. Without the noise and opinions of others clouding your judgment, you are more likely to come up with the new ideas and connect seemingly unrelated concepts. Neuroscientific research suggests that the brain's default mode network responsible for creative thinking becomes more active during moments of rest and introspection, which often occur during solitude. Solitude as well has another surprising benefit. It enhances empathy. It sounds counterintuitive. How can being alone help you understand others better? But when we spend time alone, we get better at understanding our own emotions, which directly influences our ability to empathize with others. According to a study conducted at the University of California, people who spend time alone regularly show increased levels of empathy in their social interactions. When we take the time to understand ourselves deeply, we're able to understand others better. Have you ever felt drained after a long day filled with meetings, small talk, and constant notifications? That's because social interactions, while rewarding, can take a toll on our energy. Solitude offers the perfect opportunity to recharge. It's like plugging in your phone after a full day of use. If you never take the time to recharge, you're going to run out of energy. Giving yourself time alone is an act of self-care that can help you return to your social interactions feeling refreshed and more capable. Studies have also shown that taking the time alone can help reduce stress. Who doesn't want to reduce stress these days? Solitude gives you a chance to step back from the pressures of life, whether they come from work, social expectations, or personal responsibilities. This break allows your nervous system to relax and your mind to process thoughts more clearly. Dr. Sherry Carter emphasizes that solitude is a way to reboot your brain and unwind, giving you the clarity and strength needed to face challenges head-on. Taking the time to learn about the science behind solitude not only helps validate its importance, but also shows that there is more happening beneath the surface than we might actually initially think. Solitude isn't just a concept. It's a powerful tool backed by research that can help us lead richer and more balanced lives. And lastly, there's the element of deeper understanding of personal values. When you're alone, you have the time to explore your core beliefs without external influence. What do you truly believe? What really matters to you? What do you really care about? Solitude is the perfect time to ask yourself these questions. When we're constantly surrounded by other voices, it's easy to adopt the beliefs of the crowd. But solitude forces us to dive deep into what we actually think, rather than what others expect us to think. So, how about we dive into practical exercises? These exercises can make the concept of solitude more approachable and ensure you reap its full benefits. It's hard to discuss solitude without acknowledging the impact of technology these days. Today, our phones and devices are constant companions, and I love my devices. But these devices are often pulling us away from moments of solitude. To embrace solitude fully, try setting specific times during the day to disconnect from technology. I usually do that in the early evening and in the early morning. This could mean putting your phone on airplane mode. I know it's tough, and I'll be honest, I haven't gotten there yet, but it is a very good trick. But try putting it on airplane mode during a mindful walk or leaving it in another room while you journal. The main thing is to establish boundaries with technology, because that can make a huge difference in the quality of your alone time. I don't turn on my phone the first hour after I wake up. Another way is to take a 15-minute walk in your neighborhood or community without your phone. Use the time to observe your surrounding, feel the ground beneath you, notice your thoughts as they come and go. This can help you really find enjoyment in solitary activities. If you do not like walks, like me, or cannot take a peaceful walk due to your surroundings, try something else equally charming and calming. I personally go for a few swims occasionally during the week, and that really helps. Another way to practice solitude is to spend 10 minutes every morning or evening writing in a journal. reflect on your emotions, your challenges, or even what you are grateful for today. This exercise helps you tune into your own voice without external distractions, building a stronger sense of self-awareness and comfort in being alone. And believe me, it works. I do that every morning as soon as I wake up. For 10 to 15 minutes, journaling is the only thing I do with my phone off. A final practice of embracing solitude is to dedicate the first 15 minutes of your morning to solitude. It could be while sipping your coffee, meditating, or even just sitting silently and planning your day. This way, you are intentionally starting your day grounded in your own thoughts. And again, this is a great practice. I highly recommend it. So solitude brings a variety of benefits that can deeply impact our lives. And if you're wondering, how does it really impact our lives? I'm going to give you a few points. I think I have about 3 or 4 benefits here. So the first one is enhanced creativity. So as we've discussed before, solitude creates the ideal environment for creativity to thrive. When you're alone, there's no pressure to filter your thoughts or conform to others' expectations. You are free to think out loud, sketch random ideas, and even entertain concepts that seem completely wild. Starting a podcast was once a very wild concept for me. This mental freedom is what often leads to the most groundbreaking creative moments. At number 2, spending time alone can also help you build resilience. Solitude gives you the space to reflect on difficult experiences, to face your fears head on, and to learn to manage stress without leaning on external validation or support. This doesn't mean you should face everything alone, but the strength built during solitary reflection can better prepare you for when challenges arise. And one day I will share my story and I will let you know how that helped me a lot. Number 3, without the distraction of other people's voices, solitude allows you to think deeply and focus on complex problems. You become more capable of seeing the bigger picture and even identifying solutions you might have missed if you were constantly engaged with others. This deep thinking process is invaluable in both personal and professional decision making. Finally, and I know I have mentioned this before, but I cannot mention it enough, practicing mindfulness. Without distractions, you can focus on your breath, your senses, your surroundings in a way that's much harder to do in a noisy environment. Mindfulness in solitude helps create a state of calm awareness, allowing you to fully experience each moment. And please keep in mind, when I say solitude and noise, I don't mean that you are in a very noisy environment every day. I'm married and have 2 kids and I love them more than anything. But having an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old is noisy sometimes, even if they're playing and having fun and singing and laughing and jumping and dancing, which I love to hear and I love to see. But one thing's for sure, I cannot be with myself when I'm hearing those things. There is a time for everything. So, here's my challenge to you. I want you to try 21 days of solitude. Not 21 days alone, that would be intense, even for me, but 21 days of intentionally carving out time just for yourself. No phones, no distractions, just you. You can start with a few minutes, increase it to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, as much as you can handle. And why 21 days? As Robin Sharma says, it takes 21 days to form a habit and to create change that sticks. So why not use the next 21 days to explore solitude and basically explore yourself? You can start maybe early in the morning or in the evening when things are quieter for you. Find what works for you. There is no rule for this. There's no specified time for this. And remember, solitude isn't about isolation. It's about connection. Connection to yourself, your values, and your creative mind. Let's redefine what it means to be alone. Let's embrace the power of solitude. And let's discover the strength that lies within each of us. Thank you for tuning in, my friends. Until next time, be well, Stay curious, and don't forget to take your coffee with a side of introspection. I'll catch you later. Oh, and before you go, again, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and comment and subscribe to the show. It really helps the show grow and reach more people who might benefit from these reflections. And you might also want to check out my blog at caffeinatedmusings.com. Your support means the world to me.